The coffee smelled wrong. Bitter, metallic. Nothing like the warm aroma that usually filled our kitchen. "Made you a special coffee, honey," Adrian said, placing the mug in front of me. His smile looked painted on, too wide, too bright. My sister-in-law, Vanessa, smirked from the couch. She always mocked me, always made sure I felt small in my own home. I forced a sweet smile. How kind! But as I lifted the mug, my instincts screamed. Something wasn't right. So I set it back down, leaned over casually, and in one swift move, swapped it with Vanessa's. She snorted, took a sip, and rolled her eyes. 30 minutes later, her smirk was gone, replaced with coughing, gasping, panic. And when I looked at Adrian, the fear in his eyes told me everything. The coffee wasn't meant for her. The smell was the first thing that warned me. It wasn't the familiar, rich aroma of roasted beans that usually warmed our kitchen. This coffee smelled wrong, bitter, sharp, almost metallic. A scent that made my stomach knot before I even touched the mug. "Made you a special coffee, honey," Adrian said brightly, setting the cup in front of me. His voice carried that artificial cheer he had used a lot lately. Too sweet. Too rehearsed. I glanced at him. His smile was wide, but his eyes didn't match. They flicked nervously toward his sister Vanessa, lounging on the couch like a queen in her palace. Vanessa smirked at me, her legs crossed, her perfectly manicured fingers scrolling her phone. She had lived with us temporarily for 6 months, and in that time she had turned my life into a nightmare, mocking my clothes, criticizing my cooking, telling me Adrian deserved better. I had learned to ignore her barbs, but today, something about the way she looked between me and the mug made my skin crawl. Still I smiled politely. "How kind," I said softly. But inside I was shaking. For weeks, I had felt the ground shifting under me. Adrian was distant, always preoccupied, and when he did speak, it was often to defend Vanessa instead of me. She could do no wrong in his eyes, while I could do no right. The walls of my marriage were closing in, but I couldn't quite see why. Till now. The smell of that coffee told me everything I needed to know. As I lifted the mug, my instincts screamed louder than ever. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And so, with a calmness I didn't know I possessed, I placed the cup back down, reached across the table, pretended to fuss with the sugar bowl. Then, in one smooth motion, I slid the mug toward Vanessa and pulled hers in front of me. She didn't even notice. She just rolled her eyes. "Finally, you do something useful," she muttered, grabbing the cup and taking a large sip. Adrian froze. For the briefest second, his smile faltered, his eyes widening before he quickly looked away. My heart pounded. What was in that cup? The minutes that followed stretched like hours. Vanessa sat smirking, sipping, tossing insults under her breath. Adrian avoided looking at me, his jaw tight, his foot tapping against the floor. Then it happened. 30 minutes later, Vanessa's laughter broke off into a harsh cough. She clutched her chest, her face turning red. The smirk she always wore melted into panic. Something's wrong," she gasped, her phone clattering to the floor. Adrian shot to his feet, his chair toppling backward. His face drained of color, his hands trembling. Not with concern, with fear. And in that moment, I realized the coffee had never been special, had been meant for me. I stared at Adrian as he fumbled toward his sister, trying to mask his terror with clumsy words of comfort. But his eyes darted to me, wide and guilty, as though I had walked in on his darkest secret. And I knew without a doubt that my life had just changed forever. When Vanessa collapsed into a fit of coughing that day, my body froze. My hands shook, but not from fear for her. No, what chilled me to my bones was Adrian's face. He wasn't shocked in the way you'd expect a brother to be. He wasn't horrified that his sister might be ill. No, his shock was aimed at me. His eyes darted toward the mug, then back to mine, wide and panicked. That's when the truth sank in. The special coffee wasn't a treat. Had been meant for me. I went cold all over. My husband, the man I had trusted with my heart, my life, had handed me a cup of poison with a smile. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. Not then. Instead, I slipped into silence, my mind racing while Vanessa wheezed and Adrian scrambled to fetch water. She was too busy spitting insults between coughs to notice his terror. But I noticed. And for the rest of that day, I carried the weight of it inside me like a stone. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I thought back on my marriage. 15 years of believing in us. 15 years of sacrifice. 15 years of convincing myself that Adrian's distance was stress, that his sharp words were just bad moods, that the way he always defended Vanessa was family loyalty. But deep down I knew. He had been slipping away from me long before the coffee. I remembered the nights I stayed up waiting for him, the dinners that went cold, the way he brushed past me without so much as a glance. I remembered Vanessa moving in temporarily after a breakup and how quickly temporary turned into permanent. She took over the house like it was hers, criticizing everything I did while Adrian laughed or shrugged. "Don't take her so seriously, Mila," he'd say. "She's family." But it was me he dismissed. It was me who felt smaller and smaller in my own home. And now, lying there in the dark, I realized the full cruelty of it. The woman who had tormented me for months, who had mocked me to my face, had unknowingly drunk from the cup meant for me. And Adrian had done nothing to stop it. Why? That question haunted me. Why would my husband want to hurt me? Was it hatred? Was it money? Was it another woman? Or was it simply because, after all these years, he no longer saw me as human? Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Because in that moment, heartbreak hardened into something else. Resolve. If Adrian thought I was weak, if he thought I would drink his poisoned coffee and vanish quietly from the world, he was wrong. I wasn't going to vanish. I wasn't going to cry in silence. I was going to find out the truth. The next morning, I moved through the house like a ghost. Vanessa was still pale, coughing, muttering about how something didn't agree with her. Adrian hovered nervously, avoiding my eyes. When he finally left for work, I searched the kitchen. Every cupboard, every drawer. And tucked behind the spice rack, I found a small brown vial. The label was scratched off, but the bitter chemical odor made my stomach turn. My hands trembled as I held it, realization crashing over me. He hadn't planned this overnight. He had prepared, hidden it, waited. And the thought that broke my heart most of all. At some point, my husband had looked at me, the woman who had stood by him through every struggle, and decided my life wasn't worth keeping. That evening, I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the vial under the lamp. My chest felt heavy, my breath shallow. Part of me wanted to confront him, to slam it down and demand answers. But another part whispered, wait. Find out everything before you act. Because if Adrian wanted me gone, then there was more beneath the surface. And if I was going to survive this, I needed to know exactly what he was hiding. The brown vial haunted me. Every time I opened a cupboard or poured myself a drink, my eyes would dart back to it. Hidden now in a sealed plastic bag I'd tucked inside my dresser drawer. Proof. Proof that my husband hadn't just drifted away from me emotionally. He had prepared for my disappearance. But why? That single question rattled through my mind with every step I took. I needed answers. And if I was going to protect myself, I couldn't afford to wait for him to slip again. So I started watching. Quietly, patiently. Adrian thought he was clever. He came home late, muttering about extra work or traffic. He guarded his phone like it was made of gold, always face down on the table, always within reach. But one night he slipped. He fell asleep on the couch with the phone loose in his hand. My heart pounded as I gently slid it free. I hesitated, my fingers trembling. This was my husband. For 15 years I had respected his privacy. But that man was gone. I opened his messages, and my blood ran cold. Thread after thread of conversations with someone saved as V. My first thought was Vanessa, of course. But as I scrolled, I realized this wasn't her. The messages were romantic, explicit. They spoke of hotel rooms, whispered promises, and a new life they would start together. Soon, Adrian had typed, "She won't be a problem anymore. Then it's just us." I clapped a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. She won't be a problem anymore. That was me. I scrolled further. Photos. A young woman, maybe mid-20s. Long dark hair. Smiling selfies sent late at night. Her name appeared in a payment transfer. Valerie Hart. He had been sending her money. Thousands. Transfers labeled consulting or loans. My chest burned, tears stinging my eyes. Adrian hadn't just fallen out of love with me. He had replaced me. Planned a future without me. Funded it with my life savings. And the coffee. The vial. It all clicked. He didn't want a messy divorce. He didn't want to split assets or risk Vanessa's loyalty wavering. He wanted me gone. Quietly. Permanently. The next day I dug deeper. I checked our shared bank account and nearly screamed when I saw the withdrawals. Large sums drained over months. He had been bleeding us dry while I pinched pennies, wondering why the bills seemed tighter. I even checked the office laptop he sometimes borrowed. Buried in the downloads was a PDF of a plane ticket. 2 seats to Belize. Departure, 3 weeks from now. Passenger names. Adrian Cole and Valerie Hart. Not me. Not his wife. The betrayal cut sharper than any knife. That evening, I sat across from him at dinner, watching him smile faintly as if nothing was wrong. Vanessa rambled on about her day. Her voice dripping with disdain for me as always. Adrian nodded, occasionally squeezing her hand in reassurance. And I thought, they think I'm blind. They think I'm weak. They think I won't see the truth until it's too late. But they were wrong. 'Cause now I had proof. Of the affair. Of the money. Of the plan to erase me. And while Adrian slipped further into his lies, I was already planning my counterstrike. That night I called Claire, my old college friend, now a paralegal. I told her everything. She didn't gasp or call me crazy. She just said, "Mila, you need to be smart. Document everything. Don't let him suspect. When the time comes, you'll have the power to destroy him legally." Her calm voice steadied me. I wasn't alone. I hung up, tucked Adrian's phone back where I'd found it, and lay awake beside him as he snored peacefully, dreaming of Valerie and Belize. And I promised myself. He thought he was playing a game of deceit. But I had just entered the game too. And unlike him, I knew how to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The morning after I discovered Adrian's affair, I couldn't look at him the same way. Every smile felt fake. Every word was a lie wrapped in honey. But what unsettled me most wasn't Adrian. It was Vanessa. She strutted around the house as usual, criticizing my cooking, tossing her laundry in with mine as if I were her maid, making sharp little digs about how Adrian deserved a woman who could keep up with him. Normally I bit my tongue. But now, every insult felt different. Because I couldn't shake the memory of that coffee. The way Adrian's face had gone white when Vanessa drank from the wrong cup. The way she had coughed, red-faced, gasping for air, while he looked between us in horror. It was never meant for her. And yet, she didn't seem suspicious. If anything, she had grown more smug since that day, walking around with the confidence of someone who thought she was untouchable. Something didn't add up. That afternoon when she went out shopping, I slipped into her room. I told myself it was wrong, but after what I'd seen, after what Adrian had nearly done, I no longer cared about right or wrong. Cared about truth. Her room was a mess of perfume bottles, discarded receipts, and designer bags I knew she couldn't afford. I opened her nightstand drawer and froze. Inside was a stack of envelopes. Empty. Some thick with cash. And tucked between them was a small notebook filled with scribbled notes. My hands shook as I flipped through it. Amounts. Initials. At the top of one page I saw it. A+V Belize. My stomach dropped. Vanessa wasn't just bullying me. She was part of the plan. I dug deeper, scanning receipts. One in particular caught my eye. A jewelry store purchase, $4,500, charged to Adrian's card. The name on the slip wasn't Valerie Hart, the woman from his texts. It was Vanessa. My head spun. Was Valerie real? Was she a decoy? Or was Vanessa the real woman Adrian had been planning to run off with? The thought made me sick. My husband, my sister-in-law, plotting together. The betrayal burned deeper than anything I'd ever felt. That evening I tested them. At dinner I casually mentioned, "Funny thing, I heard Belize is beautiful this time of year." Adrian's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Vanessa nearly choked on her wine. Their eyes flicked toward each other, just for a second, but it was enough. My suspicion turned to certainty. They were in it together. And suddenly the bullying made sense. The constant needling, the way Adrian defended her no matter what. Vanessa wasn't just his sister. She was his shield, his partner, maybe even his lover. The thought made bile rise in my throat. I excused myself from the table, walked into the bathroom and locked the door. My hands gripped the sink, my reflection pale and trembling. But then I remembered Claire's words. Be smart. Document everything. So I wiped my tears, pulled out my phone, and started snapping photos of Vanessa's notebook, the receipts, the envelopes of cash. Proof. 'Cause now I understood. The coffee wasn't just an impulsive act. It was part of a bigger scheme. Adrian and Vanessa had decided I was in the way. And they hadn't just wanted me gone. They wanted my house, my savings, my life. Later that night, I lay awake as Adrian whispered to Vanessa in the kitchen. Their voices low but urgent. "We need to move faster," he muttered. "She's getting suspicious," Vanessa hissed. My heart hammered. They thought I was asleep. They thought I was oblivious. But I wasn't. I was awake, listening, watching, recording. And though my heart was breaking, though the betrayal cut deeper than any wound, one thought kept me strong. They believed they were predators. But they had no idea the prey had already turned into a hunter. After that night, the house felt like a stage where I'd been given a new role. Silent observer. I moved through rooms with careful steps, listening for the whispers behind closed doors. I pretended to be small, to be the confused wife they thought I was. But inside I was building, slow, careful, relentless. Claire became my anchor. I'd called her the morning after I found Adrian's messages, and she'd come over without hesitation. She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She put on gloves, opened a laptop and said, "We document. We freeze. We prepare." Practical. Precise. Exactly what I needed. We made a plan. First, secure evidence. Claire walked me through what mattered. Timestamps, bank transfers, physical receipts, screenshots, witness notes. We organized everything into folders labeled by date and by person. I took photos of Vanessa's notebook pages, copied transaction records from our shared account, made screenshots of Adrian's messages, and saved emails Adrian had sent using the work laptop. Claire showed me how to watermark copies and send encrypted backups to a secure cloud address under her name. "If anything happens," she said, "we have the trail." Second, protect assets. Claire helped me open a separate account in my name only. Quietly, the way you lock a door without announcing it. We moved small legal amounts into it from personal savings, enough to secure immediate needs and to show financial independence if questions ever arose. She advised me to notify the bank of suspicious activity and to request temporary holds on transfers that looked like asset stripping. Every step was calculated to make it harder for Adrian to erase me with a swipe of his thumb. Third, build allies. I started talking carefully, not to everyone, but to the right people. Mark from accounting became braver when he realized I had proof. He quietly handed over scanned copies of invoices he'd always thought odd. My neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, who had once seen Adrian sneaking out early on a Sunday morning, wrote down what she remembered. Little confirmations from ordinary people added up. Claire also arranged for a forensic accountant to do a discreet review of our finances. The accountant's voice on the phone, calm, clinical, gave me chills when he said, "This is an organized pattern. Someone has been deliberately hiding transfers." The word organized settled in my chest like armor. While we set traps in paperwork, I set emotional traps in life. I acted like the scared, the hurt, the wronged wife because it put them at ease. Vanessa continued her mockery in front of friends, flaunting her designer items as if they were trophies. Adrian tried to look normal at work, calling in long hours and smiling at neighbors. But I noticed the jitter in his hands, the way his throat hitched when his phone pinged, the way Vanessa's laughter grew brittle. They began to slip. Small things. Adrian's careless voice memo saved to the cloud, Vanessa's bank deposit that didn't reconcile. One afternoon, Vanessa left her email open at the kitchen island and walked away to take a call. I stood there pretending to wipe a plate, watching the screen. Her inbox contained direct payments from Adrian and messages with subjects like, confirm, Belize, and next steps. My heart hammered. Took photos. Proof felt solid, heavy in my hands. There were small victories that tasted like sugar. The bank acknowledged receipt of my suspicious activity report and froze one of Adrian's credit transfers. He panicked, screamed in the garage, slammed doors. Vanessa snapped at him, panic bleeding through her usual sneer. Their calls to each other grew frantic and coded. I listened from behind the bedroom door, noting every slip of tone, every hint of fear. It was intoxicating to hear the predators become prey. Community mattered too. A few colleagues noticed Vanessa's ostentatious new purchases and asked politely where she worked. Vanessa laughed them off as a model gig. Mark quietly contradicted her, forwarding invoices showing otherwise. When a neighbor mentioned seeing a courier drop off envelopes in Vanessa's car, Claire filed a request for that delivery company's logs. Evidence built like a stone wall. Behind my composed exterior, nights were hard. I'd wake, heart racing, imagining their plans, wondering what the next move would be. I wrote everything down in a small notebook. Dates, times, exact words. The notebook became my map. I read it back some nights and realized how far I had come from the woman who once flinched at raised voices. The fear remained, but it was tempered now by a steady, determined flame. They tried to intimidate me. Adrian left passive-aggressive notes. Think carefully. This could ruin us. Slipped into my purse when I wasn't looking. Vanessa posted thinly veiled barbs on social media hoping I'd react. Each attempt only tightened my grip on patience. Claire reminded me. Let them move. Let them reveal themselves. Your job is to collect. Their job is to rush. Their rush came sooner than they expected. One Sunday, Adrian rushed out claiming a meeting, but left his laptop unlocked. Mark, finally brave, emailed me the CSV of transfers he'd dug up. Between his file and Vanessa's receipts, the picture was complete. Claire called an emergency meeting with a lawyer she trusted at a boutique firm. Within 48 hours, Claire filed preliminary paperwork alerting the bank and initiating a restraining notice to prevent asset transfers. The paperwork arrived like a thunderclap. Adrian's face when he read the notice was something I'll never forget. He looked smaller. Vanished smugness. Vanessa's laughter died in her throat. Panic lit their eyes like dry leaves set afire. We had not yet won. But the momentum had tilted. And just as the legal gears began to turn, Adrian's calls stopped being confident orders. They turned into frantic whispers. Vanessa, once sharp and cruel, started checking mirrors, smoothing her hair in public, unsure. I slept that night for the first time in weeks, and when I woke, the house felt quieter, less heavy with secrets. My strength wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself with fireworks. It was quiet, built by small actions that together formed a wall. The next move would be theirs. And soon their mistakes would be public. The papers landed on Adrian's desk Monday morning. I didn't deliver them myself. I didn't need to. The law firm Claire had connected me with filed everything formally. Fraud investigation notices, a freeze on bank transfers, and a subpoena for Adrian's financial records. By the time I got home that evening, the house was a storm. Adrian was pacing the kitchen, his tie loose, his face red. Vanessa was perched on a stool, her phone in hand, eyes darting like a trapped animal. "You did this!" Adrian shouted the moment I walked in. I set my bag down calmly. "Did what, Adrian?" "Protecting myself. Not letting you drain our accounts for Belize." Vanessa's face blanched. "She knows," she whispered. "Of course she knows," I said. "You weren't half as clever as you thought." Adrian's rage sputtered into silence. For years he had spoken over me, dismissed me. But now, with legal papers at his back and Vanessa's panic rising beside him, his voice cracked. "They'll ruin me," he muttered. "No," I corrected softly. "You ruined yourself." The days that followed moved quickly. The bank confirmed the freezes. Investigators began calling. Mark from accounting handed over more files. Final nails in Veronica's coffin of lies. Vanessa was questioned about cash deposits that didn't match her modeling jobs. She stopped mocking me altogether. Her laughter dried up. Neighbors whispered. Colleagues looked at Adrian with suspicion. What had been hidden behind smirks and false smiles was now spilling into the open. And me. I walked lighter. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. I made coffee in my own kitchen, savoring the aroma without fear. I smiled at Emma when she asked why I seemed different. 'Cause I had survived. Adrian had thought one bitter cup would end me. Instead, it exposed him. And Vanessa, once my tormentor, was now tangled in the very web she helped weave. The game was over. But the final move was still mine to play. The house is quiet now. No whispers behind closed doors. No cruel laughter echoing from the living room. No mugs of coffee laced with secrets. Adrian is gone, facing investigators, lawyers, and a trail of evidence that even he can't talk his way out of. Vanessa. She packed her bags in the middle of the night when the subpoenas arrived. Word is she's under questioning too, but I don't care anymore. Because for the first time in years. Feel free. I walk through the kitchen now and make my own coffee. I inhale the aroma and let it fill me with something I had nearly forgotten. Peace. The same kitchen where Adrian once tried to erase me has become the place I rebuilt myself. Looking back, I see the journey clearly. I was the woman who endured bullying, who swallowed tears in silence, who thought being quiet was the same as being strong. But silence doesn't protect you. Action does. And when I chose to act, to gather proof, to fight smart instead of loud, I became someone new. Not a victim. Not just a survivor. A woman who took her life back. Emma, my daughter, noticed first. "You look taller, Mom," she said one morning, even though I was standing the same as always. I laughed, but inside I knew what she meant. Strength makes you stand taller, even when your body doesn't change. Adrian and Vanessa thought they had cornered me, but in truth they had freed me. They forced me to remember my worth, to fight for my life, and to show my daughter what it means to refuse to be broken. So if you've ever felt small, bullied, invisible in your own home, hear me when I say this. You are stronger than you think, even when they underestimate you. Especially when they underestimate you. Because sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one holding all the power. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because stories like mine remind us all. Strength isn't given, it's chosen. And I chose mine.